Alright guys, that update I've been wanting to give ya. So, I fully own this Jeep now. It's 100% mine. And I actually feel like this is a new start, a new beginning for, the automotive future, if you know what I mean. So, I, previously, had a, van, which was given back to the previous owner. And, the reason is because from day one, it had inspection issues. And, well, if you can't get plates for a car that doesn't pass inspection, you're kind of screwed, right? So, last December, I had bought this, but there was some complications with that. Complication number one being, I had just moved and all, and I didn't have the right stuff, but eventually we were able to get things going. And, if you find yourself in the situation that you can't own a car because of licensing or whatever, always make sure that you have the proper stuff before going to buy a car if you move states or whatever, because, well, there can be some complications, and, complications people want to avoid. And, well, that is what had happened, is there were a little bit, some complications, and, the future of this Jeep until now was very uncertain if this was gonna ultimately be mine, and turns out it is. So I'm going to see what my options are with this, and try to get some little upgrades here and there, because I know I haven't done like a full tour of this Jeep, and the reason is because I don't want to give away personal information, because I just need to find somewhere where I can just make the video without worrying what's in the background and all, because you got to respect privacy and all. And yeah, so eventually there'll be a tour, but I can give you a little bit of a tour, from what I got. But basically, this is a 2008. It's not a 2011 or newer, so it's got the older interior, but I mean, this is basically everything that the Jeep is before the newer ones came out. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's been a rough few months lately, especially over this last month. It's been pretty stressful, but, things are slowly getting better, and, we're going to be on the right track, but, but we'll get there, we just gotta, do the best that we can, and, so yeah, but rest assured, now that we have lived through situations in my life that have unfortunately have happened before, now we know that the era of those situations are pretty much done. Because no matter how somebody tries to prove to you anything, it's just how the end turns out, basically. You know, you gotta just know that you gotta trust your instincts. You gotta, you know, not just be easily fooled or anything like that, you know. So yeah, anyway, let's go on about the future of this Jeep, and I can give you a little bit of a tour of it. So I didn't really clarify this, but in the Jeep, you know, when I first bought it, it's been, I don't know how long it's been sitting, but the headlights were completely faded out, so we had to put new ones in. And that's basically the only thing on here that has mostly been replaced like that. I mean, I've had to get new brake calipers and stuff because basically we took it into the shop, right? And, you know, for steering issues, because the steering on this isn't, you know, as smooth as it is on normal cars. So you just got to, you know, this is basically what happens when you're driving down the road the whole time. And, yeah. So, all right, I might have to do a pause because, all right. But anyway, but yeah, this is what happens, right? So we took it in for that. Turns out there was nothing wrong with the alignment, nothing wrong with anything. Steering was all good, nothing was wrong. Alrighty, so we got somebody backing out. Let's see if they're gonna clear me without hitting this thing. Alright, so they didn't back into me. Because, yeah, I mean, these don't have aftermarket fender flares. I don't really like the ones that are skinny. And that's my biggest thing. Like, I do not like those at all. I mean, you have to understand, this is my first Jeep. Okay, I don't have very much experience with Jeeps. Especially ones that are older like this one. You know, this runs pretty rough on the roads and stuff. You know, so I don't want to get aftermarket fender flares and then have all that stuff exposed and doesn't really protect your tires too well and things like that. So that's why I don't like the aftermarket fender flares. And I don't like the bumpers are okay, but the flares I'm not too fond of. I think that if you got the stock flares, I think if you get into a fender bender on the sides or whatever, I think you'd be much more better off. But, you know, you have to understand, this is, you know, this is not a good time to be putting expensive stuff on a Jeep on the outside, especially if it's first one, you know. And anyway, so going back to the whole brake problem, basically they replaced my front brakes, but one of my calipers was bad. So my brake was seized up on the right-hand side. So it almost caught fire one day. So I had to go and get that fixed. And then I had to get an oil change, had to get an inspection, yeah. And all that costed me about $700. Yeah. Just in the last, probably since February. But yeah, I mean, not everything on here has been replaced. You know, I mean, it's in fairly good condition. I mean, it's, you know, it's much more better than the van that I had. The van that I had tons of things wrong with it. I mean, it was just going to cost you more money to fix, but it really didn't have much value in it. I mean, yeah, it only had 3 seats, but, you know, it had parts missing on it and stuff. I mean, I just, you know, it's not that I wouldn't have just given up on it. It's just that with the situation that's been going on in my life for the last month and everything, and, you know, moving and all and everything, I just think it'd just be better off to make better financial choices. And my insurance couldn't It was too expensive for insurance and all to have 2 vehicles. So yeah, I mean, I don't really need 2 vehicles. All I just needed is just one to get me around. I mean, you know, that's just how it works, right? So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a bit of a tour. All right, so this is the steering wheel. It's pretty nice. This is the dashboard. It's very nice as well. You got the mirrors and all. I mean, the thing about it is you see all these new Jeeps. They're like the newer JKs and all. And, you know, they're newer JKs and they're all much more nicer looking on the inside. They're a little more different than this one is. But, hey, you know, at least you got these. You don't got that. You don't got little, you know, like they do in the older models. But, yeah, this is a little bit old like on the previous models, but you know, these little speaker things right here on the ends here on some of the newer JKs, you know, that's something that's similar. But other than that, you only got 2 power outlets on this thing, and I don't know what that button does. I never messed with it, but you got all your AC controls and all that, and your radio, you know. Door locks and all are different than what they are in the newer JKs. You got your storage console, and it does lock, I believe. So that's good. And you got this down here, which is a bit of a pain to shift. I'm going to explain that in just a minute. It's all cloth interior, so you're not going to be doing any crazy off-roading unless you're going to, you know, you won't be able to have the doors off or anything like that. But, yeah. So, that's a little brief tour. I might go on the outside and just show you. I mean, there's really nothing to see on the outside. It just looks like a simple JK, you know, pretty much. Even though I've thought about getting LED lights and stuff, but I don't know if that's the best case scenario. You know, I don't know. All right, so let me tell you about why the 4-wheel drive thing is a pain to shift. So the reason why it's a pain is it's directly connected to the transfer case. So when you shift it, it makes like a clunk noise, like a clunk, like it literally sounds like you're literally transitioning the drive shaft into 4-wheel drive. And I've tried the 4-wheel drive, and the 4-wheel drive works on this. It's just that the one time I shifted it into neutral on the 4-wheel drive thing, and I couldn't get it back out. So I had to push it all the way forward, and I was able to get it out of neutral. Otherwise, you won't be able to go anywhere. But yeah, basically, it's just a little knob down here. You just pull on it, and it makes a clunk noise, and it shifts into all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, so that way you can get yourself unstuck if you do get stuck. But I don't really use it too much. I mostly use rear-wheel drive, which is a little bit sketchy in this thing because my tires have the tendency to spin, or sometimes if you're parked on gravel, you know, you have to shift it in the 4-wheel drive, otherwise you won't be able to turn or anything. But yeah, you know, and if you got lifted Jeeps, they're not very good when going uphill, especially steep uphill, because the tires will just spin, and you'll have to shift it in the 4-wheel drive to be able to get up the hill and stuff. I mean, it's certainly a pain. So yeah, so you know, it's pretty small in this thing. It's smaller. The back doors are a little bit smaller. You know, you kind of gotta climb in a little bit. You know, you're not supposed to use these to climb in. You can, but I don't recommend that you do, because I just bought these, and these are pretty easily breakable. But yeah, basically that's what it is. And you know, these things right here, I had to buy new because the ones that were in the front were put in the back, because these things have a tendency to hang in your face, and so when you need to look out the window, you're constantly bumping your head into the into this thing, and it gets annoying sometimes. But Yeah, this thing sits up as high as a full-size SUV or a pickup truck kind of thing. You know, and that's kind of good because the Jeeps we had in the past didn't do that, even though they had bigger tires and all. So these ones are only on 31, 32-inch tires. So I don't know if there's aftermarket suspension, but I'll probably see if I can show you all the suspension. But, you know, other than that, I mean, it's pretty simple, you know, because the previous owner, who was phenomenal, by the way, he had his son driving this thing. And his son was 6'3". And I think that's why his son got the tires bigger. So that way he wasn't, you know, to him it felt like he was my height and he was only on rating, you know, little standard tires. Oh, I just dropped my keys through the seat. But yeah. But I don't know why he made his son, why he sold this. Maybe his son got in trouble or something. But, you know, personally, if I was the previous owner, I would have just let the son keep it because this ain't too bad. I mean, it's not really all, you know, it's not like you're going to be going down to a bunch of Jeep shows and doing all kinds of crazy stuff and having 100-inch tires and all kinds of that. You know, this is just a basic, simple Jeep. I mean, it doesn't have anything, you know, it does have power windows, but it doesn't have any other features other than that. You know, it's pretty basic. You know, it's what you get for an X. But yeah, I got some ducks in here. I only got one duck on the dashboard, a couple of them on the dashboard. And I got some around. But let me tell you a story. So one time I got a duck. It was the very first night I got this thing. It was parked out on the street. The very next morning I go out there and there's a duck on my door. Yeah. But here's where the fun part happens. So one time I was parking out on the street with this thing. And there was an old man who pulls up in a little Chevy car, you know, and I'm trying to parallel park this thing, right? Because I got no backup camera, so I have to get out and look every time. Need to get close to something, right? And there was this old guy who pulls up, and he parks just right in front of me, like he was gonna pull in front of me, and you know, he was just like looking in his mirror at the front end of my Jeep. And I have to say, you know, it was a pretty good thing that, you know, that I got the LED lights and all, and you know, but yeah, I mean, people flip out over these things. I mean, I'm serious, they flip out. I mean, you could have a stock Jeep like this one, and you could get like 1,000 ducks, you know, because people like these things. But the thing is you don't want to have these because you want one. You want to have it if you're going to use it for what it's used for. Now, in this Jeep's case, it's older. So chances are I'm not going to be going off-road, crazy off-road trails because, well, this thing has a long way to go before it does anything like that because, you know, it's older. And you know what happens with old cars. Sometimes they get to that point where the littlest thing becomes the biggest thing. So, yeah. But yeah, people flip out over these things. You get people looking at you in the oncoming direction and all. You know, I mean, you don't really have to have a really beefed up Jeep or anything like that. Any way, shape, or form. You can just have a simple stock Jeep, and that would be enough for most people to leave a duck or whatever. Now, I did have somebody leave a piece of nasty, moldy bread underneath my wiper arm one time, and I was just confused as to why that had happened. So yeah, so you know, you definitely are going to get people's attention, you know, but that's typical of Chrysler made vehicles, you know. I mean, you know, but let me give you a piece of advice. Just because a car looks nice and all, on the outside and all, does not mean that it's probably going to be the best car. You know, you just got to keep that in mind. But yeah, I got a not a soft top, a hard top. I should have bought a soft top because a soft top would be easier to get this top off, but it's a pain with a capital P to get the top off. You have to undo this stuff here. Yeah, it's here and here. Okay, and this light does not turn on. So in order to turn on the light, you have to do that. But we don't want to do that because, you know, my battery is a little bit questionable these days. I haven't checked out my battery properly. But yeah. So I'm going to give you a tour here as soon as I have the space, as long as I don't get backed into here. Okay. Because you don't want to hit a Jeep with this. You don't want to hit a Jeep. It will mess up your car pretty badly. It will mess up your car pretty badly. I mean, the Jeep probably would be fine, but anything it hits is going to suffer some pretty bad damage. So yeah. Alright, need to find my key. They fell in between the seat here, so they gotta be in here somewhere. There they are. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to give you guys an update of what's been going on in my life, you know. Like I said, the last couple of months have been, you know, pretty stressful and difficult, and just haven't had the time to give you a tour of the Jeep and all, because, you know. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in another video.